message was really resonating with the people of
let me
Uganda.
give you one so that we interrogate that one. 8 million young people join primary school. 1.1 million join secondary school. 174,000 join university. Those dropouts there of about 7 million shillings, of 7 million people. How do you account for that and say you have secured the future of 6.9 dropouts?
Of course, let me tell you, we have been looking at that. Even I remember when I was still in the Ministry of Education, it was a concern of every Ugandan of the number of children that drop out of school. But of course, the government discovered that some of the issues that lead to the dropout. One of them is the issue of school fees, that is the high school fees that is demanded. That makes many of our children drop out of school. And to me, I want to thank His Excellency the President, because he has tried to come up with solutions that can help these children not to completely lose out. Issues like coming up with programs of skilling that are helping our children. Many of our young people that have even been giving testimonies on most of the rallies that we've held, who have benefited from such programs. They give evidence that they dropped out of school because of school fees, and it is the reason this time round the President is making it very clear that this time round, one of the things that is going to put emphasis on is to ensure that children of Uganda do not drop out of school because of school fees.
Thank you. Let me come to Andrew. Andrew, I know you, first of all, I liked the Bad Natives, watched the few clips and a few things, assertions that we'll get to later on. But when you look at this election, some of the old tags are out. Talk about Honorable Katuntu, talk about Honorable Semuju, all those. The splitting of the Buganda region. Of the 26 districts, 13 to National Unity Platform, 13 to the NRM. Voter apathy. It was, the past election, it was 8 million that didn't show up of the 8.1. That is 56%. This was 21.6. 11 million showed up. That makes it 52%, dropping by 4%. Your view of this election and your analysis of it?
Well, first of all, why did you watch clips of...
I watched the whole thing.
Okay, but you said clips. I was going to get out of my chair here and punch your nose, but you have saved yourself. First, I should tell you that if I'm not mistaken, in that discussion on Bad Natives, I mentioned that voter turnout will be something like 45%, and Museveni will get about 65% or 45%. I believe that actual voter turnout could even have been 45 or 40. Yeah, because in this election, the opposition, NUP, was very weak and absent on most of the polling stations across the country. The likelihood that in very many NRM strongholds, because there was no voter verification biometric system used, opportunities for NRM people to tick for the President and the MPs to exploit the process, also tick for themselves, were very high. It's very possible that anything between 1.5 to 2 million votes were of people who did not show up, but voted. Also, I want to put a caveat on what I say. It is not always the case that because they ticked for somebody, it means he was not a potential supporter. He may be a potential supporter, a real supporter who did not show up. And I've seen this in NRM strongholds. If you go to the Kato Corridor, Nakaseke, those areas of Sembabele, which are Kiankwans, where the Balalu, and other areas in Sinjiro, where you find high concentrations of NRM support. They could say, hey, how come Mukazambile did not show up? Okay, they vote for him. Do you see? They vote for them. It happens so often. That does not reflect a weakness on the part of the rigging party. It reflects overwhelming strength. That if the opposition has a polling agent, he is a lukewarm supporter of the opposition, they give him 50K, he sends the declaration forms, or in most cases, I need new people to be honest, I don't think they were in more than 35% of the polling stations in the country. So if you cannot even get a polling agent at a station, how do you expect to get the vote? So that is the first thing, that voter turnout was much less than 52%. I suspect it could be anything between 40 to 45%. In fact, I'm even shocked that Bobi Wine got 2.7 million votes.
24%.
let's say 24.7, which is roughly 25. I want to round up to the nearest tenth. He got 25%. It means that maybe in areas where he's strong also did the same thing. Remember that it is the opposition, people who have been in the opposition can say this, where they're also strong and they have that kind of cultural and political strength, they will take the ballots of those who have not shown up. Maybe Bobi Wine got 2 million votes, Museveni got 6 million votes. Museveni got 7.9, but maybe he got 6. 1.9 are extras. Bobi Wine is 700 or 1 million are extras. But by and large, what you see as the outcome is a sign of the relative strength of these candidates. Now, of course, in Uganda's history, we don't have members of parliament being re-elected. I'm going to do statistics. I've not yet finished them. I was working on them today. How many members of parliament were in the previous house and have been re-elected? What is the share? In the last election of 2021, less than 20% of incumbents were re-elected. We need to find out how many in this were. So the loss of people like Katuntu and Semuju is therefore not surprising. In fact, Katuntu is unique in the sense that there are only 8 members of parliament in Uganda who have been elected 5 times straight. It is Kadaga, Katuntu, Elijah Cooper, Bakawilindi, this man of Remiyaga, who has also lost Chikubo, Okoto Gong, Bright Rwamirama in Isinjiro, who is there is a lady called Namuyanda. She's even a minister, one lady. There are 8 only. It's rare to have a person be elected 5 times in a row. So you will not be surprised that after 5, the only person who beats that record is President Yoweri Museveni. This isn't this seventh straight win. And so that is one factor. The other factor, of course, I also believe that I had my grandson on my left here and my granddaughter. First of all, Uganda's elections are never free or fair. If you look at the beginning of the election period from 2022 to 2025, the NRM will put so many roadblocks in the way of the opposition to win. They will block them from accessing radio stations, from opening offices, from having rallies in these areas long before elections. So I get surprised that no people complain that they steal their votes on the last day. In fact, they don't even understand the meaning of the argument. To say that they rigged them on polling day is to state that the electoral process, the electoral law, the field was all leveled and they only lost because of the balloting. No, they lose much earlier than that. The state uses all the resources of, the NRM uses the resources of the state to get an unfair advantage. What they believe is that Museveni has presented the opposition a very critical dilemma. They face 2 choices and they have failed to craft a third. Should we participate in a deeply flawed electoral process where we are certain to lose? There is not a single rational Ugandan who did not know who was going to win the presidential election. If you are Ugandan there listening to me, tell me, is there anyone of you who did not know who the president-elect would be today? Okay. So the challenge for them has been, should we participate in a deeply flawed electoral process and therefore legitimize it? Or should we boycott this flawed electoral process but miss an opportunity to put our case before the people of Uganda, our grievances, our ideas about the future, to reach out to them and rally them? But in avoiding to legitimize the election, we lose 2 things. We are unable to present ourselves to the country and hear our grievances and our ideas, but also we sink into oblivion, because if you boycott, you cease to be of any political relevance. Now, I believe that the opposition have always been correct to say no. Let us participate in spite of the flawed process, not because we shall win, like at the presidential level, but because it gives us an opportunity to reach out to the people of Uganda and sell our case. Now, once they have made the second decision, which I think is strategically correct, they make the wrong choice out of it. Because if you have now participated and legitimized the process, you cannot turn out like Besigye and finally now Bobi Wine. You know, I once wrote an article, the Besigyeization of Bobi Wine. I cannot believe that Bobi Wine is walking the very same path of mistakes that Besigye made during his career. Because if you have legitimized the process by participating in it, you are bound by its outcome and you should accept it. None of the contestants can say there is anything Museveni has done in this election of 2026 which he didn't do in 2021, which he did not do in 2016 or 2011 or 2006, 2001 and 1996. If anyone says there's something new Museveni has done, they should come and challenge me. So Museveni's toolkit for every election is known. What surprises and also depresses me is that the opposition's response has been the same. They have not innovated any new idea, first on how to participate in this election, either through new maneuvers and tactics that can involve deceit, decoys, whatever it is that you can do to avoid the roadblocks that have been put in your way. A good strategist looks at the terrain and decides, here there's a swamp, how do I dodge it? There's a marshland there, a mountain, a valley, a lake, a river. These are obstacles in my way. If I'm a soldier, a commander commanding an army, a soldier commanding an army, an officer commanding an army, a priest leading their flock. We have a priest here, Bunjo. Where you go into a hostile environment, how do you ensure that you collect your flock and they are not killed? So the opposition have done no innovation at all. And finally, if they have accepted to participate, which means they are legitimizing the system, I feel like if I was Bobi Wine, and so sad I am not, after an election, I should not only concede, but I should find a way to work with Museveni. I should be the one reaching out. This is where I think this Raila Odinga man was amazing. Raila held Kenya together. These people are trying to tear it apart because he understood that, okay, the process may not be fair. I may have lost unfairly. Twice he won an election, twice he was cheated. But twice he did a handshake and found a way to work with the existing system. So you move, once an election is ended, you stop being a grievance-driven, radical activist against the establishment. You become a respectable and acceptable stakeholder in the political process. And I believe that had the opposition adopted this other strategy, which actually is the inevitable outcome of them accepting to participate, they would have performed better in shaping the destiny of this country alongside the NRM than the option they have taken of defiance, and now what is the one of whatever, of boycott of government, declaring it's illegal, it's criminal, he's Maduro, he's a dictator. They put themselves in a much weaker position than they would have been, you see. So, because we're not going to expect a perfect election in Uganda. If Bobi Wine was in power, his agents would use the power of the state to their own advantage. Someone asked me, but if Museveni is strong, why do people tick for him? Of course, you'd be naive not to see. Assuming I am Andrew Mwenda from Toro, I'm positioning myself for a big position a big cabinet position in the government. I must prove to Museveni that I did a great job for him. Museveni does not need to sanction this rigging for it to take place, by the way. From my watching of him or listening him speak, Museveni seems to believe that he's the one who gets cheated. And when he was investing in these biometric systems, it's because he really wanted to protect his vote from being stolen. What Museveni does not know and what nobody around him can tell him is the painful truth that in areas where he's strong, his people, even if he didn't wish to, they want to prove, me in Luka constituency, Muzei, I got for you 95%. Me as the MP, I also got 90%. You can see how strong I am. Because it is those numbers that help you stake a claim on a cabinet position or the influence you exercise in the government. So people do that out of that self-interest. So finally, I see you are getting impatient with my
I wanted you to add to, especially this split of the 26 districts of the Uganda region, 13-13, but also the old tax jumping out. What is the population saying? What are we missing that they're saying, especially with voting out the old tax?
So first of all, let me put this way. To answer that question, I think that the worst disaster to have happened to opposition in Uganda was Bobi Wine. See, Bobi Wine moved this country in 2021 and was able to show that you can, NRM does not always rig, really. You can stop NRM rigging. In 2006, Museveni had gotten 12% in Acholi, Besigye got 82%. So I used to ask people in the opposition, okay, by 2011, Museveni had grown to 40 in Acholi region when the war ended. If Museveni has unlimited capability to rig, how come you were able to defeat him badly in actual UBSJ and now he's beating you? So the same applies to Bobi Wine. When he comes in 2021, he's able to wipe Museveni out of most of Buganda. Not every part of Buganda, most of Buganda. But Museveni had always won all the districts of Buganda except Kampala and Wakiso. And by the way, in 2011, Museveni got 245,000 votes in Kampala district, or Kampala city, and BSJ got 248. There was a difference of only 3,000 votes. So what is it that made Museveni always win or perform very well in Buganda that took it? What happened to the rigging machinery in Buganda? It shows that you only rig where you are strong. You can't rig where you are weak. Now, of those 26 districts of Buganda you're talking about, Museveni won many of them. If you go to Lyantonde, Greater Masaka, you have Lyantonde, you have Sembabule, you have Mubende. I think there are some districts of Buganda that Museveni actually won. Don't forget that. And lost many. But there are some that he won. Those where the dominant tribe are not Baganda. Bobi Wine won in predominantly Baganda districts. Now, in this election, Museveni did not only win more districts in Buganda, but even those where he lost, his numbers increased. Let me begin with an example of Kampala. Museveni got 126,000 votes, Bobi Wine got 384,000. You could multiply Museveni's vote in Kampala 3 times and you not reach Bobi Wine's vote. In this election, Bobi Wine fell from 73%. He fell to 64, if I'm not mistaken. No, 60. Because Museveni got 39% of the vote in Kampala. Voter turnout in Kampala fell from 42% to 23%. But of that share, Museveni grew from 23 to 39.7%. Bobi Wine fell from 72 to about 60, actually 59%. So if you're Bobi Wine, you have to ask yourself, what is it that made me perform so well in terms of absolute votes and percentage? This time, Bobi Wine fell significantly in absolute votes. He also fell significantly in the share of votes. You see? So you were asking me, why is there that variance? The first variance is that Museveni had won a couple of districts, but his performance across the whole of Uganda increased. It is simple that where he did not beat Bobi Wine, the margins in the previous election had been very high. But Museveni made a comeback. And there are 3 reasons I can attribute this to. The first and most important is not what Museveni did, but what Bobi Wine did not do. After the election, Bobi Wine went to sleep. Where Museveni, after the election, was trying to reach out to old friends and alliances, to reach out to them, to Mengo, to Rubaga and others, bribe some, cajole others, try to win many and intimidate a few and blackmail the rest. Bobi Wine is sleeping in his bed. I want the panelists here to tell me, do you guys know any activities Bobi Wine had between 2021 and 2025 to endear himself to voters? Instead, he started calling with this guy Impuga, Mathias Impuga. Mathias Impuga is a very powerful politician in Buganda. People underestimate that. And has very strong links with Mengo, which had helped Bobi Wine win. Because of loss of Mathias Impuga, he alienated large sections of the people at Mengo. I don't know whether people followed the radio stations. CBS campaigned actively for Bobi Wine in 2021. Did you follow that? In this election, they were lukewarm. They didn't oppose him, but they never campaigned for him. They never made a strong case for him. So that's a very important platform for mobilization and reaching out to the population, which he lost because he lost Mathias Impuga. So while he was busy wrecking his own house, Museveni was building his. Museveni is president of Uganda and a very powerful man by every measure. He has been in power for 40 years. He has extended enough patronage to buy the loyalty of so many Ugandans. But I see Museveni, this very big man and president, he's not only talking to the cardinal, the kabaka, the archbishop, the sheikh, the mufti, whoever it is, he's also talking to people very low rank. Full figure, Kusasira, Kasuku. You know, he's winning them over. You are Bobi Wine. There are people like, let's say, Conrad Nkutu, Wafula Nyangobo, rather Wafula Gutu, Charles Onyangobo, you have Robert Kabshenga, you have Augustine Ruzinana, Amanya Mshek. They may not be your supporters. They are bishops. You go to there is the Emory Mori, you go to Gulu, there is a Ruot, you go to Toro, there is a king or associates of the king. Do you reach out to these people who had powerful social institutions within our society? Have you reached out to powerful politicians who are retired, from whom you can drink from their well of wisdom? Have you reached out to the businessmen? Because you see, when you organize rallies, you alert the state and the security services come and crush you. I felt that Bobi Wine systematically dismantled. Nope, because poor him, he did not know what to do, and if he knew it, he's afraid maybe of reaching and talking to people. They are intellectuals of Uganda, they are businessmen of Uganda, they are church leaders. There is Pastor Bunjo here. Did he ever come to visit your church and have a conversation with you? You see, so I wonder, how are you going to win over Ugandans? If you are, you know, we express ourselves through our cultural institutions. So whether it's Mengo, these kingdoms and chieftains, they're very important for you to talk to. Our churches and the mosques, these are very important social institutions. At different levels in Uganda, have a large evangelical movement. And these, what they call Wempe churches, the Pastor Kayanjas, some of them are allied to Museveni, but why not talk to them? They're intellectuals you can reach to and get ideas. They may not support you, but you can learn a lot from them. They are retired men, great politicians of great stature. Augustine Ruzindana, Dan Sali, Amanya Mushega. Did you talk to, did you do anything? And you expect that you will grow your base. So I feel like Bobby Wine's strategy was I should keep preaching to the converted. But now in Christianity, you don't only, Jesus said, I not come for the righteous ones, I came for the sinners to save those. You see, the guy is so hopelessly out of depth when it comes to politics. And then he has a circle of advisors, like this boy David Rubongoya. They are driven by emotions rather than by rational calculation.
Okay.
So it is, I think that more than what Museveni did, and Museveni did a lot to block him, it is what Bobby Wine was unable to do. And where he was able to do anything, it was to wreck his own party, disagree, and break up with a certain group of people within his party, like Matthias Mpuga, and those weakened him. So he fell in Buganda, largely because he lost Matthias Mpuga and many others. I'm sure the Mwanga Kivumbi and the Segonas were no longer enthusiastic about him, and they could not have campaigned for him. And they also ended up losing. But also, many people became dispirited about him. He was he had lost the novelty effect, but he not build a new thing that can endear him to the people.
Okay. Let me come to Apostle Bunjo. Apostle, what was your experience, especially with this election day, and from a church perspective, what is your outlook of the outcomes of it?
Yeah, thank you, Timothy, for the wonderful question. I've been voting because when Museveni came, I was 20 years. So now I'm 40, I'm 60 years now. But this year I'm making 60. And what I can, many of my colleagues have shared about that area, which I am in politics in the way as, you know, even pastors are politicians, because politics is the management of society. But also, like myself, do engage to see, because I'm patriotic, I want to see Uganda, a better Uganda. To my analysis, we can say all the mistakes that were there in the elections, vote or whatever, and whatever Honorable Mbidi and my colleagues have shared, I want to throw this to Uganda, that even though we are 40 years in this new democracy, because democracy has just come to Uganda, so many people were, you know, ignorant about so many things. Like Dr. Sedinde said, we need a lot of civic education. I don't usually see this on our televisions, and I don't think even government put more money into this, whether opposition or the government, where we can intentionally begin to teach people about patriotism, about their nation, all about that. I have not seen that, witnessed that. Much of what we are seeing now is a result of people who are less informed. A few people today are not so much, they don't know much about what's happening. So ignorance is too much. That's why you can find a lot of people being abused in these elections. Another thing is that our candidates and cadres, like they are said, they have not again engaged with the electorate to give them the proper way of handling things. From the church side, and I from the church, I can say this election, compared to the rest, the one that was there, there's been a little bit of improvement of whatever is happening. Of course, any democracy, democracy is the rule of the people, by the people, of the people. People make mistakes in so many other areas. But I can say that this election, for instance, for me, I woke up very early in the morning to go and vote because the place where I vote, they don't cater for some people like me. So I woke up very early at 7 to go and vote, but I almost got out of the line until a voice told me, if you get out of this line, you know, you are not going to be, it will be something that will be on your heart that maybe you stab your country by not voting. So I stayed. Like you said, how many people left by that? So what I would think that even for the people, like for the biometric machines, they must be, I mean, held accountable. We are waiting to see some judicial, whatever, you know, from government. Why did it happen? How did it happen? Because so much money was spent and there was no accountability. We are yet to see that accountability. What I can say from the biblical point of view, again, I have a scripture here. We can logically argue things and say things, but at the end of the day, the vote was cast. In Proverbs 18:18 says, flipping a coin can end arguments. It settles disputes between powerful opponents. 16:13 says, the Lord is cast into the lap or ballot box, but every decision is from the Lord, which means you can vote assuming that somebody is going to win, but between the box there, I don't know whether God also gets into the ballot box and add, or subtract, but at the end of the day, the end results will come out and it will be God. So for me, I would urge people that now for the presidents and the MPs were elected, and those are now authorities. Because once somebody is declared, it's an authority. We want to build a Uganda tomorrow. Much as we also need to work on our mistakes. I would love to see a situation where there is that a review of what happened on both areas in the political parties, instead of arguing and all that, why didn't we do this? How did we do this? I was seeing the president in Electoral saying, I expected 18 million people to vote, but it's only 11 people who voted me. I have to inquire from that. But also, I can answer that. Some people, Timothy, did not vote because the people would say, I met so many people who would say, I will not vote because obviously I know the outcome. So how many people were held there because they assume that somebody is going to go through? So that one also, civic education has to be taught. But at the end of the day, the vote was cast, leaders were chosen, and even tomorrow you're going to choose leaders. We should abide by what the vote has said. That's what they say.
Apostle, lastly, as a church leader, you have a congregation that you superintend over.
Right.
Not just the church, but also the different arms of the ministry that are there. Do these leaders understand the needs of the people?
Timothy, thank you for asking that question, and I'm happy to be on this forum. I've been asking all these political leaders always come every time when it's just a few seasons to elections. I lead Christian Restoration Ministries, but I'm involved in the development areas. I'm based in Bombo. I went to Bombo, planted a church. We do community development. We teach people how to save. We do dig holes. Not because recently we had a very big operation, and even we dug roads from Bombo and all that, and somebody was asking, Apostle Bunji, Uganda kwesimba. Even one of the area MP who competed in Yero came and said, Apostle, please, are you going to, because the people feared that Apostle did this, Bunjo did this because he's going to compete. I think, let me speak in the camera, because the people who are chosen today and who are going to come tomorrow, forget and stop this issue of coming to people when the time of election has come. You, by your money and whatever influence you have, because when somebody is elected in parliament or in presidency, they have a lot of contacts. You can dig a well in the village before the elections. You can hire a tractor and dig a road before the elections, because that would be the basis of your election. So most people at Timothy, to tell you the truth, even maybe 70%, they don't care about the needs of the people. Because at the end of the day, look at today, soon they're going to be sworn in parliament. Those who competed and fought each other, they'll be in the floor of parliament, they'll be in the committees sharing money, but the people that they caused to go to prison, our young people like the ones they were showed in Masaka, are suffering. Innocent people don't know. But these colleagues use that, by the way, to go to get a job. The challenge we have today, politics is no longer service. it seems like a job. And because it's a job, not even a job with responsibility, but how do I get, that's why people are crying, even committing suicide, because they lost. Otherwise, if you lost, this is a cast vote. You knew we were 7 on one position. If one of them went through, you knew that one will be chosen, the other will not be chosen. If it was just a game like Kiprotik tried so many times and didn't work, but at the end of the day, he kept coming. I think that's a good question. Many politicians, many cadres are just coming for positions, for honor, for money, not for service. If that was the case, people would have. But of course, let me say this: even the electorate is also deceived. It's bewitched. People will leave somebody who worked for them. I saw that in Bamunandika just recently. Muyingo lost. Okay, Honorable Muyingo worked for Bamunandika so well, but somebody, the electorate brought somebody who doesn't, even at this time, has not done anything. So both the electorate, but also the cadres, I think it's a responsibility in this next 5 times, because Timothy, the next 5 years of Uganda, this Chisanja, for our Mzee Museveni, it's not his term or somebody's term. It's a term to thrust us in destruction or in building a nation, because this is one of the terms he has to teach his cadres, to graduate his cadres, to even people from political whatever, to make sure that the Uganda, the way we behave in the next 5 years that we are starting soon in May, will determine the next 40 years of enjoyment, the Vision 40 now of Vision 60 to 2060, or to be the domination of Libya. But if we don't want to do that, we have to educate our people, be responsible people, love, like Jesus. The reason why Jesus' movement is still here, do you know why? He never had gone a gun, but he's a man who fed the people, who healed the people. People just need to see helping their needs.
Thank you very much. When we come back, we'll be talking about some of the reports that we received, especially from the observers, but also the internet shutdown and what the future of this country will look like in the next 5 years, because come May, the new government starts then. This and more after this break.
Welcome home to entertainment, to Wi-Fi everywhere, to high-speed internet, to security, to first-class support. To convenience. Welcome home to MTN WakaNet, superior internet for every home. Visit www.mtn.co.ug/WakaNet. Welcome home. Together, we are unstoppable.
Special announcement. The NRM Secretariat wishes to sincerely appreciate all Ugandans for re-electing President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and majority of NRM parliamentary flag bearers in the recent concluded elections to lead the country for the next 5 years. As we continue to celebrate the attained victory, the NRM Secretariat also wishes to remind all Ugandans and the general public that elections for the district chairpersons, Kampala Lord Mayor, mayors and councillors will take place on Thursday, the 22nd of January 2026, while voting for the municipality, city division chairpersons and councillors will be held on the 27th of January 2026 across the country. Let us stand up and vote to assert our choices as we protect our gains. Long live President Museveni, long live NRM. This message is brought to you by the NRM Secretariat.
I'm Dr. Rosemary Nansubuga Seninde, Director for Mobilization, NRM Party. Fellow Ugandans, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the NRM fraternity, we thank you most heartedly for voting wisely for President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and all the NRM flag bearers. I wish to thank all the mobilizers with whom we have mobilized for the party. The success is for all of us. Thank you very much. I would like to remind you, the remaining elections will be as follows. On the 22nd January, we shall be voting for LC5 chairpersons, city mayors and councillors. On the 27th January, municipality mayors and councillors. And on the 4th of January, LC3 chairpersons and councillors. Remember to vote for NRM flag bearers who will be able to work with President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni to protect the gains. May God bless President Yoweri Museveni. May God bless all of us. May God bless Uganda, for God and my country.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project. That answers somebody's question.
For the past 20 weeks, the front bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Now airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. I'm joined by Apostle Bunjo. I'm joined by Honorable Mukasambide, the old man of the clan, Mr. Andrew Mwenda, Honorable Okwalinga Simon Opolot, and the Honorable Dr. Rosemary Seninde. And we're discussing the post-election, the pre, during, and the post. Now we'll be featuring on 3 subject matters. 1 is the internet. 2, we'll be also spreading our wings to discuss the Observer reports. But the biggest area where we'll spend most of our time is the dissecting of what the next 5 years look like, especially some of the things that Andrew said on a podcast somewhere. Let me start with the Honorable Mbide. Honorable Mbide, the internet was shut down and continues to partially be shut down. As we speak, some of the social media, you cannot get there. X, WhatsApp also has a bit of difficulty there. And government is justifying this by saying they're trying to curb misinformation. Is this justifiable? But also, there's another thing that was said by the executive director of UCC when he was doing the partial lockdown on the internet, when he said that if you continue to send misinformation, UCC will send malware to your phone. Is this legal? And what mandate gives government to lock down a public service like this?
First of all, I have personally been incited by the submission by the old man. It has been with outright clarity. What we need to describe to our population is the fact that what is happening are not mistakes by government. When you are considering the cause and effect principle, this is a choreographed procedure that intends to deliver a delusional belief by the population in a democracy, while at the same time it curtails it in a very clever manner. For example, I remember I came here and some time ago spoke to the population here. I told them, here in Uganda, we don't have a democracy. What we have are processes that have been cleverly choreographed to give a semblance of a democracy, because their democratic tendencies maintained by government. While at the same time, establishing authoritarian rule that has the capacity to maintain it in power. We hold periodic elections, while the quality of such election is really cannot guarantee a free and fair result. That is called a democradula, or a dictablanda, where dicta, of course, now is developed from a dictatorship, and the blanda is a soft. Blanda refers to soft. These are processes that have been described over time.
So if we don't have Honorable Mbide, if we don't have an election, as also Andrew mentioned about it, that almost the result is predetermined, what is the alternative?
Incidentally, for me now, my fundamental belief is that of good governance, where good governance is determined in accordance to results. Because for me, I believe Africa cannot deliver a substantially free and fair election, because leaderships are inclined to maintain each other in power. To that end, it is foolhardy for anybody to expect them to deliver a democratic process that is believable. So for me, if you asked me, I belong to a political party, but at the subconscious level of my brain, I don't believe in parties. That is number one. I participate in democratic tendencies, but I find them Sisyphean and completely enigmatic for me to understand. That a result of an election determines the next leadership. For me, considering what we call the low relative political maturity of the masses, I find them incapable of taking a decision on the next governance. Completely incapable. For example, for me, I have never won an election where voters are below senior 6 or its equivalent. I've always won an election wherever voters are above senior 6. Right from the time when I was guild president, I have won the East African Legislative Assembly parliamentary race twice for 10 years. I have been elected vice president of DP in a delegates conference of majority, senior 6 and above, unopposed almost 4 times. But when it comes to the Wazoks and the Palokas taking a vote, I have not won. So for me, I believe it is definitely foolhardy for me to expect them, because now, what is the legislative agenda for Uganda? Vis-a-vis what is happening in the whole world, for example. I was looking at what Elon Musk discussed in the Saudi Investment Forum. For him, between the period of 10 to 20 years, money will be optional, work will be optional, all work is going to be robotized, and now we must now be in a position to legislate on the cost of AI. How many of those MPs are going to take a decision of that nature? The job apocalypse that is going to befall Uganda, how many of those are going to legislate? So for me, government has been given both the knife and the yam. It is up to them now to take a decision on the future of Uganda. The population cannot do that. So me, if you asked for my honest views, government is doing what it has to do in order to stay in power. They don't stifle freedoms, but they curtail them. They don't establish visible fanfaronades, gasconades, blockades against freedoms, but they do it in such a way that it is not visible, but it happens anyway. They will allow you free speech without the forum on which you are going to air out your freedoms. For example, during the election period, it is very unlikely that opposition sentiments will find their way in much of the media houses. Either directly or indirectly, somehow, all media houses adopt a principle of fear is life. Now that means clearly opposition sentiments will not find themselves on the media house platforms. The resultant effect, therefore, for me, I begin to look at good governance. I want a situation where brilliant minds like Papa Andrew Mwenda can find themselves in positions of leadership. He cannot subject himself to that vote by the Palokas. They will never understand him, first of all, and he will find himself almost incited into using extra measures in order for him to win. The pastor here will not find. When you listen to Madame Seninde, you find that she almost really requires, it is a requirement that she should have to be in parliament, for example, to legislate for future, for posterity of Uganda. There is going to be a problem. And I think government now has the way forward to give in terms of what Uganda, they have managed to stay for long, as to whether or not they will manage to have delivered Uganda into a better status tomorrow, it is still incumbent upon them. Today, the President of the Republic of Uganda has campaigned. And we had, you remember we were here, and I told the opposition that, first of all, this is going to be a different election, because in this one, the president is going to participate. 2021, he never participated. He was hiding and dodging COVID. So he definitely never participated that much. He was doing what he called a smart campaign, convene a population of 50 people, a congregation of 50 people per district. I addressed them, following SOPs, check for COVID for all of them. I mean, that was not a proper campaign. In this campaign, he has really campaigned. He campaigned and ran an issue-based campaign, while the opposition, we were not unanimous on a message, first of all. We were not unanimous on whether he must go. We were even not unanimous on which president should actually be voted for. Now, in that kind of enigmatic behavior, which population would know what to do? And that is what happened. When you asked, for example, for me, the reason why, for example, in the Democratic Party, and this is the democradula I am talking about, that it is authoritarian rule established where, for example, instead of forcible curtailment of freedoms, the government adopts, it is authoritarian, but it adopts mechanisms of dialogue, indirectly, in order to, for purposes that they can remove opposition centrifugal forces. What was the resultant effect? Parties like mine, for example, we, the top leadership, looked for President Museveni's votes, meaning we were not unanimous on his departure as the opposition. We were not unanimous. Two, we were not unanimous on which president should replace him. You cannot ask me that this man should go. Who must replace him? Any of these ones. I think for me that one looks like guesswork. We ought to have been unanimous. In a situation of that nature, which is outright confusion, the President of the Republic of Uganda becomes again the best choice for anybody without civic education. He just seems the fulcrum of stability, and that's it. We must find a way of having a Uganda that is better for us and even for those yet unborn. The role that government has is to create the best country tomorrow. Those that are involved in the innermost sanctums of state power need to tell the president, it is now his role to create a Uganda that he fought for. He has now been given back 1986. That's it. This is 1986 for him. He must now take a decision, because there is no opposition sentiment that is believable. NUP, which would have been the leading opposition political outfit, for example, is itself guided by this kind of pontification and panjandrum, gladiatorial circus. And that cannot generate an alternative for a government that has stayed for 40 years, has established fundamental freedoms. At least there is absence of war that is believable, where there have been all attempts to bring war to our doorsteps.
But Honorable Mbide, you say that the president is the fulcrum right now.
Right now.
5 years from now, 2031, he will be 86 years old.
Yes.
What does that leave the country looking like?
No, for me, I am happy you invited even the man of God. Because clearly now, we need even the intervention of God. The participation in terms of governance is not necessarily going to depend on those that the people have elected. It is impossible. Because those that have been elected are now living a life in such a way that they are extremely happy, and of course they are going to be in a learning environment. And yet problems of a country vis-a-vis the whole world order cannot wait. The bishop knows that Jesus left disciples. We have bishops. We have sheikhs. Incidentally, I've never seen a bishop on behalf of Satan, but he has followers. So in my opinion, I don't know. He will have, we need prayers. Because even Satan has followers and he has a message. I remember in one of the, in the Bible, there was a time when he wanted to hand over land titles of a city to Jesus in the event that he accepted to eat. But at the same time, Jesus owned the whole world. So if somebody wants to give you titles of the world that you actually own, you find that he has a mouthful of what to say, but which is a complete nuisance. Government has a role to play in terms of going forward. What has happened is not a mistake. It was choreographed. It is a result. Let now government deal with this result, at least for posterity.
So where does this leave the opposition?
Where is the opposition? Because it is generally merely by nomenclature. It doesn't exist. Except you would tell me that we have got alternative opinions. When you listen to the opinions of Andrew Mwenda, you think he's actually the leader of opposition. Because those are the views that we ought to have.
He has a noob card.
I am the president of NUP. But Bob Wine and Joel Senyonyi stole my votes. After they rigged me out, also Museveni rigged them out, which was payback time.
Were your votes 2.7 million?
No, mine were more than that, 20 million.
Yes, lastly, Honorable
So we need to first of all reconfigure our own selves. We are dealing with the relative political maturity of the masses. So they can't definitely have a decision to make. Who must be the directing mind and the will of the next status of affairs?
Okay.
It must not be the leaders where the population know what to do. But because the population are completely unaware, they do not know how to adapt themselves to a changed state of affairs. It is now going to be cadre-based to determine a direction for Uganda.
Thank you. Let me come to Andrew. Andrew, I hope that in the future we can have a conversation about Uganda Airlines. I've seen some of the things you've said about it. I hope you can come back to have that conversation. But in the very seat you were in, you mentioned something that we all had avoided, that 2021, the number of people that had avoided the elections were about 8 million. You gave a percentage to it, and those are the ones you'd ask the opposition to focus on. But on your podcast, you went on to talk about control, security, you added General Saleh, you added General Muhoozi, and you talked about the transition, what it looks like. When you look through your crystal ball and look at Uganda these next 5 years, with our president also 81 turning 86 in 2031, what does Uganda look like?
First of all, I should tell you, I have a very depressing view of Uganda, in which case I could be blind to many things that the government of Uganda is able to do, which I would be happy about. But this is my experience. According to, Uganda has developed something called NDP4, National Development Plan 4, which goes up to 2040. So the projection is that we should increase our economy tenfold. I will use IMF figures. Uganda government has its own figures, IMF has its own figures, but I like to use one standard which I follow very closely. The IMF says Uganda's GDP rate now is about 64.6 billion. Let me say 65 billion. So our plan is to grow the economy in the next 15 years to 650 billion. Right now, to grow that economy to that level, you need huge investment in infrastructure. Let me begin with transport infrastructure. You need roads, highways, railways, water ports, you know, like they want to do at Bukasa and the Port Bell. Because an economy of 640 billion would be bringing huge volumes of cargo and taking huge volumes of cargo out. Now, so that is one. You need to invest huge amounts of money in huge projects to build 6 to 8 lane highways to the coast. That's standard gauge railway, they have to do it. Then you have to build a big port, move a lot of cargo into the sea. Point one. The second, you need huge volumes of power to drive your factories and a growing middle class and a growing industrial base, your manufacturing. Then, of course, you need a huge infrastructure for your ICT. So, let us look at our good Uganda. Right now, to move from Kampala along a Jinja Road to Jinja, from Jinja to Iganga, to the border either in Malaba or Busia, is a nightmare. The road in Mavera Forest is broken. There is, of course, a diversion in Mukono you can take, which is, what do they call that road?
Kayunga.
No, Katosi Road. But the ability of government of Uganda to launch and complete these major infrastructure projects is characterized by apathy, indifference, incompetence, corruption, foot dragging, and false compliance. In 2015, I chaired the investor conference on the Jinja-Kampala Expressway. The projection then was that construction would begin 3 years later, 2018, and end 4 years later, 2022. We're in 2026, they have not even hired a company to do that road. So that's why it takes you 3 years to move from here to Busia. Government of Uganda, when it comes to building dams, whether you take of Jagali, Karuma, and now we have Ayago, it can take on average 20 years between doing feasibility studies, contracting, getting bids and tenders, and then negotiating contracts, commencement of construction, and completion. It takes a minimum, let me say, of 15 years. Uganda right now has total installed energy capacity of about 2,047 megawatts. Of that, only 1,500 is effective supply. If you switched on everything, it can give you only that. And peak demand is about 1,350, which keeps growing at an annual average rate of 13%. So by the end of this year, we will not have electricity. We shall be entering load shedding. Leave the problems of transmission and distribution and the losses you suffer along the way. This country is running out of electricity rapidly. How does anyone expect these things to function? Now, for me, in that podcast, I was recommending that what Museveni needs is to get government to function. But Museveni has suffered 3 things. First of all, him as an individual is physically and intellectually exhausted. It comes with age. He has been in power for 40 years. The amount of load he has put on himself has broken him. He's a broken man. And anyone who thinks that this is the Museveni of 1990, 2000 to drive things is not that. Is not there. 2, by his very nature, is a very patient man. He calls strategic patience, but what he calls strategic patience has become inaction. That's why I was telling you there is a problem with Uganda Airlines. I'll give you an example. On voting day, Uganda Airlines flew from London, Gatwick to Entebbe. It had 11 crew and 10 passengers. It cost us, that plane is an Airbus A330, A800. It costs us $16,000 per hour when it's flying. Since it's 9.5 hours, let me say 10, to London, that's 160,000. You have only 10 passengers in economy. Even if you assume that each passenger bought that economy class ticket at 800, that's $8,000. You're burning $160,000 to carry.
8,000.
There are more crew on the plane, pilots and crew, than passengers. Why are people boycotting this airline? In any other country and any other situation, a public-owned enterprise in Uganda Airlines, a president would have taken action. Where is President Yoweri Museveni on Uganda Airlines? On the 9th of January, Uganda Airlines flew from London Gatwick to Entebbe, 9th January. It had 21 passengers. On 12th of January, it flew from Dubai to Entebbe with 10 passengers. People are boycotting the airline. What is the response to this loss of confidence in the airline? They were having delays of how many hours? Days. In London, 3 days. Dubai, 2 days. Lagos, a whole week. So, a president who's acting, and remember, we give a subsidy to Uganda Airlines of 120 billion a year. That notwithstanding, as I speak right now, Uganda Airlines owes its suppliers $80 million, but that's a hidden subsidy. You owe Civil Aviation Authority, you owe everybody else who supplies you. In fact, twice or 3 times, many times, not once, twice. We have, there is a time we are trying to overfly Eritrea. They said, but you have not paid your overflight fees. They turned the plane. People were going to Dubai. They found themselves here at the landing. You know, from here to fly over Eritrea is halfway to Dubai. So it takes 5.5 or 6 hours to reach Dubai. They found themselves at Entebbe. They thought they had arrived in Dubai. Another time, the Prime Minister of Uganda was going to Tanzania. Tanzania Civil Aviation Authority stopped Uganda Airlines midway. Said, you have not paid your landing and overflight fees for so long. Turn the plane. Uganda government had to call Tanzania and beg and say, please allow us, we'll try to find the money. So you are giving 30 billion every quarter. That's 120 billion a year to an airline. Then it has debts of $80 million it cannot pay. So that's about 300 billion. 300 billion plus 420 billion in a year. And then you have 5 passengers. The losses are growing at an astronomical rate. and a president is not taking action, that is the Museveni you're going to have for the next 5 years, I can tell you. And if you have Museveni acting like that, it's a disaster. Now, me, I have my solution. People may say, I declare conflict of interest. General Muhoozi Kainerugaba is a personal friend to me. But for him, he is different in the sense that he believes in quick, decisive action on things. If it was if he had his way, Uganda Airlines would be streamlined by now. People would have gone to jail, others would have been thrown out, and better people would have been replaced within a short time. And I'll give you a practical example. Next year, we are hosting with Kenya and Tanzania CAF, Africa Cup of Nations, AFCON, Africa Cup of Nations. We are supposed to build stadiums. I went with him to Kigali. They have built a marvelous stadium at Amahoro and an arena next to Amahoro. And yes, President Kagame, who did this? He said Sumu. He brought those people here. I'm the one who took them to State House to meet the president. In less than a year, there is a world-class stadium. You can find it in very few countries in Africa. You might go there and see it. Because Museveni has allowed state action to degenerate into bureaucratic wrangling, bureaucratic procedures that are meaningless, archaic, and arcane. You see? So you need a person who can act on his behalf. Now let me tell you, I understand. Remember, although I'm an outsider to the power structure in Uganda, I'm also an insider. So I'm an outside insider to the system. So I am able to be outside, but I can be an outsider seeing it from within. The system is so captured and held hostage by different powerful factions. You can get the best manager for Uganda Airlines or for anything to run the government. People will maneuver at State House to talk ill about that person, undermine them, sabotage them, obstruct them. That CEO or that head of a government institution or minister has limited access to the president. The people who have the ear to the president will tell him a mountain of lies. So this person either will be crippled from working or will be fired or whatever it is. Let me tell you, if you want government to work, get a leader of government business called Muhoozi Kainerugaba as Prime Minister and leader of government business with full power to act. Who is going to Museveni to tell lies about Muhoozi? In a way, he can go and counter the lie the next day because he has access. Access means a lot. He will grab many of these Ugandans who have been playing around. These borders are very, very high. You will have this city cleaned. We will have the mess resolved, government working. Now, of course, people say, you see now, Mwenda, we are supposed to wrote an article opposing family rule. Now, yes, I am a realist. You can bring the best human being, and I will tell you he will not succeed. Not because he doesn't have the skills. He does not have the necessary political weight to tilt the balance of political action or the balance of politics into effective state action. You can't do that. You have to be realistic. You ask me, Prime Minister Muhoozi Kainerugaba, lead of government business, and he will have a program what we call performance-based management. Your Minister of Internal Affairs, these are your targets. Your Minister of this, and this is the result I want. Anything else, I don't want to hear it, you are fired. You steal things, you go to jail. And you will not tolerate all this kind of nonsense. Now, Museveni may not heed my advice, but it is the best thing that can rescue him because Museveni has been given huge political capital. He must spend it. And if I was Museveni, I would be really worried. Because, why would I be worried? One, I'm conscious of the fact that, you see, I'll give you an example. Acholi region, in 2021, Museveni got 55%. Now he got 81. West Nile, he got 64. Now he has 77. Lango, he had 62. Now he has 81. Everywhere you read, Museveni's performance has gone very, very high, right? So, but voter turnout was very, very low. In fact, these high margins of Museveni are a reflection of the weakness of Bobby Wine across the whole country, except in Buganda and Busoga. That is one. But also, which implies the second thing, that there was a lot of ticking from Museveni. So although he has huge political capital, which he can spend now, and if he does not get somebody to run government, and please, President Yoweri Museveni, listen to this old man of the clan, please don't appoint anybody. There is no Ugandan I know who can run a government for you. People, you know your system, you don't maybe know your system, your own system. But you're an old man, people will manipulate things that person will not perform. Just get them who's there. And don't be shy about having your son as Prime Minister to run the government. Don't be shy. Just be tough. Because you've been given a huge mandate, do utilize it. You've been given political capital, spend it. You should spend it because of another thing. Only about 40 to 45% of Ugandans showed up to vote. It tells you that anything between 60 to 55% of Ugandans didn't vote anyway. What are their feelings? These are the people that need to be brought back into the political fold. Uganda need to be brought back to believe. One of the reasons people are not voting, few people believe that politics is a vehicle for progressive improvement of the country. If you live in Uganda, you know it doesn't. And if M7 has also won, it's because of PDM. You know, PDM, you get 1 million, give it to somebody, every village you are pushing their money. I mean, you cannot drive a system purely on such bribes. You need to build a system on faith. You know why Jesus, he died 2,000 years ago. He had 12 followers only. By the time he was hanged or crucified, all of them had forsaken him, including Peter. Before the cock crowed 3 times, the guy had denied him. So he had no follower at the point of his death. Now he has billions. Why? Because people have a faith that when I go to Jesus, my sins will be washed away and I will go to heaven. You see, there must be a faith Museveni gives. It cannot be because you gave me $1 million shillings. People must have some ideological faith, and to rebuild that faith in the state and its politics and the government as a theater for progressive improvement of people's lives, we have to begin, when you're building your house, you begin where visitors come. You begin with the city here, and you begin spreading into the country. If Kampala is the most difficult thing to improve, the day we succeed in improving Kampala, this country will be fixed. Because it will be easier now to go to Fort Portland elsewhere where there is less concentrated resistance and achieve great results. So that is, if you ask me what I see, we have huge potential in the event that Moses is Prime Minister. We have very little potential if that doesn't happen. Maybe they bring, I don't know who, it is him. I don't see anybody who has the energy, the zest, and the forcefulness to crack a couple of limbs and skulls to get things to work in Uganda. This country needs an imposition of a particular discipline for it to get out of its abyss.
Thank you. Honorable Kwalinga, I have seen you listening to Andrew and Honorable Mbide.
And he has read so many.
You're already part of, and you respond to some of the things he has mentioned, you're already part of the 12th Parliament here as MP-elect.
Yes.
The 11th Parliament was mad with scandal after scandal, with an exhibition there. The performance was there. What does the 12th Parliament look like? Especially now that we already see the numbers that have come in, with the NRM having about 355 members of Parliament, Independent 63, National Unity Platform 50, and the National Unity Platform has dropped from 57 to 50. What does that composition look like, and what legislation do you foresee?
But Timothy, before I go to respond on that question, there is one thing that I needed to highlight that the grandfather Andrew mentioned. First of all, there was, and as far as I'm concerned, there was no ticking, ballot ticking for President Yoweri Museveni or candidate Museveni, in my area at least. He won his vote genuinely. He got 85% in my area, and it was a genuine vote.
What was it in 2021?
It was around 60.
So the jump of 20%
yes.
that is there.
Yes.
That's where Andrew is saying the 10 and the 10 could have been...
Not real, because you realize that there have been so many achievements in this period. My place, for example, didn't have tarmac. Now we have tarmac. There was an issue of PDM, which never existed. A program that directly puts money to the pockets of people. It has solved unemployment among the youth. We used to have a high rate of unemployment. Then there are skilling programs that were put in place.
Honorable, what was the percentage of unemployment? What has been the percentage of impact of PDM in your area?
In my area, we used to have, first of all, there was a group of youth that dropped out of school. It was high. They didn't have any kind of initiatives or capital to do anything in terms of economic development. To specifically answer your question, we used to have around 70% among school dropouts. unemployment. But today, with the PDM, we have less than 30%. One, there has been money given to them, and Teso people mainly depend on agriculture and rearing. So this is what they're involved now. So first of all, that we need to dispel, that there was no ballot ticking for President Museveni. It was a genuine win in Teso, as far as I'm concerned. There is one thing that we need to know. There was some time back in the Greek culture, there was a Pythagorean theory that was developed. It is ability to unite the opposites. I think President Museveni is very good at that. And this is what has been happening. Honorable Mbide mentioned that all of them, even those in opposition, were busy campaigning for President Museveni. Some of them concentrated on campaigning for President Museveni than themselves. I saw in my area the FDC president. I don't remember him mentioning FDC party. He kept talking about President Museveni, that he was the one going to demand and ask him to bring the cows. He didn't have his own program. The issue of cattle compensation, for example. Yeah. He kept saying that he's the only person who is capable of going to remind the president. So by that time, he already knew it was President Museveni going to be the president of Uganda, not Nandala Mafavi. So you see such. So to come to the issue that you asked me about the 11th parliament, first, I may not dwell into because there are government agencies that were mandated to inquire into the performance of parliament, which I believe they should be able to do. This is the time for them to review how parliament performed and tell the public. But how the 12th parliament will perform, it is very hard to determine now until we reach there. But one thing I'm sure, there are capable people who will perform to the expectations of Ugandans, because Ugandans were able to reshuffle the old folk and has replaced it with a new one. I believe this new one will perform to the expectations of those people who voted for them. There was an issue of leaders. Honorable Mbide talked about it, that he's been contesting. He has only been successful in winning
A6 and above.
A6 and above. So I was really wondering what could have happened to him. Because to me, I think that one needed to properly diagnose the problem of society. Because your inability to diagnose that problem that makes people look for solution to solve that problem normally becomes a challenge. People have needs, and those needs must be fulfilled by the leaders that they elect or perceived leaders. The ability to win trust among the public is very pertinent. Trust cannot be won by lies, which is often perpetuated by the opposition elements. Opposition relies on lies most of the time, and therefore when time for voting comes, you find that the lies have caught up with them. Whereas lies travel faster, eventually truth catches up with those lies, and it dismantles the lies, which the NRM government has been very good at dismantling the lies of opposition.
So why switch off the internet?
Switching off internet is about negative propaganda.
You have said, in your own words,
yes,
the NRM has been able to stop the misinformation with the truth,
Yes.
then why switch off the internet if you can counter the lies with the truth?
You see, the time that a lie travels is faster than the truth. Because one will allege now, and you find it has reached the whole country. By the time you start dismantling it, people have already been misinformed. So how do you then stop it midway in order for the correct version to come out? You institute this temporary measure.
Do you feel that the public trusts government enough that whatever information comes out of it, they will take it as the gospel truth? Or you have led to mistrust that everything your government is saying is doubted by the public?
It is only the opposition that doubts, the opposition elements, and those who want deliberately to portray government that way. For example, when the government promised UPE, was it not able to deliver? When the government promised cattle compensation for TESO, haven't we just passed the 80 billion to provide?
But that's the second time we're passing it. Money for cattle compensation.
No, you are misunderstanding the two. The first one is different from this one.
What's the difference?
The difference relates to the fact that this one is going to give 5 cattle across the board per household.
What was the first one?
The first one was having selected beneficiaries and those who are perceived to have lost their cattle during insurgency.
Honorable, you mentioned UPE, and we'll stick there. And as asking the Honorable Dr. Rosemary, 8 million pupils join P1. The dropout rate is 6.9 million.
Yes.
So how do you measure a program you have brought and not tell us what is coming out of it?
By the way, your question has reminded me of what Andrew Mwenda talked about to Uganda Airlines. The president appoints people and puts people in respective offices. I should say that those are guardians of those areas that they have been put.
The question is, are they competent? A
failure of the person to perform. By the way, there is no person the president appoints without having passed through a thorough process of vetting. And it's not the president that vets. He gets these reports from institutions.
Okay.
There is an element of, before you, there is, first of all, in the issue of Uganda Airlines, there is a whole ministry responsible. There is the AGG. You get me? There are bodies that are meant to monitor, Auditor General. We have the anti-corruption agencies. Like
Honorable Kwalinga, what you're saying is factual, but what Andrew said about Uganda Airlines, it is not the problem of the management. It is the people that are behind it that take different elements of what is happening there to kill it. The 80 million in debt is not because they're failing with the management. It could be a bit of that.
No, actually I believe that the primary, you see, Uganda Airlines as an airline, a new airline, would face many challenges, and I would be the first person to come on this TV and defend management on the basis of the fact that you cannot expect that airline to grow, to become profitable in the next 5, even 10 years. I don't mind if they are growing. What is happening at Uganda Airlines are two things: extreme incompetence, if not ignorance, of the industry, but also thuggery by top management. That airline is run by thieves. And I say this deliberately. I want the CEO and the commercial director and whatever to go to court and sue me. You know this, and sue me for defamation because they have said they are thieves, and I will prove that they are. A lot of the failures at Uganda Airlines are not failures of ignorance. Let me give you an example. They have done many deals there on fuel, on purchase. A lot of the problems are resulting from the fact them removing service providers who had been sent, I think, by previous management in order to bring their own who can give them commissions. And that's why I want them to sue me. And when I got caught there.
Okay.
To demonstrate. So the problems of Uganda Airlines right now that we have stem from management. Some of it from incompetence. How do you, we have two wide body planes, the Airbus A330. You go and have 5 flights to Dubai every week. You have 4 flights to London every week. You have 3 flights to Mumbai every week and 2 flights to Lagos, Abuja every week. On 2 planes. It means that if you fly that plane to London, it takes less than 9.5 hours. And then 9.5 hours to come back. That's 18 hours.
19 hours.
19 hours. If you involve what we call turnaround time, call it 23 hours. If one plane gets stuck in London by any mistake, all the other routes are constrained. Who made this decision? Even the board. That board needs to be dismantled. By the way, earlier I told Uganda Airlines, if it was left to me, I would go and get white people. Because Ugandans, I know them, are afraid of, this is a racist statement, we fear white. I go get a white man from England who works in Emirates, Qatar, Singapore Airlines. I put 4 members of the board, top management, all white people. I put Ugandan understudies to learn. No Ugandan is going to ask a white person who is the CEO with experience and all this. You hire my wife, hire my sister, hire my brother. That buccaneering will not take place too. No Ugandan is going to try to become a service provider by bribing them. So that airline and the amount of money we're investing and the strategic value to Uganda's connectivity requires that you have people who cannot be tossed around.
Okay.
Either you have Edwin Karujiri as executive chairman, then I would have CEO, Muzungu. I would not bring an African there. And initially it may need 10 years of that kind of protection for it to grow. But I can tell you, the decision I'm telling you, which is the right decision, Museveni will not make it.
Thank you.
So
just finish your point before I get to...
Yeah, I just want to...
Honorable Kwalinga, please
yes.
allow Honorable Mbide.
Okay.
Make a submission.
Is intermixing issues. You know, universal primary education should be looked at as an after-war, after retardation education process. No innovation takes place at primary education level. That cannot be a signal for development. It is just a fire brigade tactic against a retarded educational system of the past. If you want us to progress, please stop comparing Uganda to its past. Start comparing it to its neighbors. That is when you will now know that we are progressing in terms of education, in terms of what, and airlines. What stops Ugandans, East Africans from, by way of acquisition, mergers, establishing an East African Airlines? What stops us?
Honorable Kwalinga.
I've really now understood why he finds the problem with the Essex people and below.
Hey.
Yeah, I've just understood it. That's where the issue is. You need to diagnose these people's problems properly, because it's not easy for us, those who have been educated, high-level education, to understand. But there is something that Andrew Mwenda mentioned about General Mose. For me, I would think he should be made a vice president.
Huh?
Yes, it's more appropriate. Why do I say so? When you place him at the level of prime minister, there is still a limitation on his performance and authority. It should be a position where he's able to directly deal with the president and deal with the entire government. Perhaps we would add, like you see in the army, the deputy CDF is the inspector of armed forces. So there should be a responsibility that is put within the vice presidency, what I would call maybe a research on operational effectiveness, a unit that conducts monitoring and investigations on how government is performing. Yeah, within the vice presidency office.
Performance assessment and innovation unit of some sort.
Of some sort.
Okay.
Because at the level of prime minister, you see the scandals that have been there. It's not good, but at the prime minister, I mean at the VP level, he will be able to oversee the entire government and even sometimes act as a president with executive authority.
Thank you.
Yes.
Allow me come to the Honorable Dr. Rosemary. The election observers, His Excellency Good Luck Jonathan, came through and was leading the AU team and raised a few concerns. He said the distribution of material was late. He also talked about the technology. The time compensation was not commensurate. 4 hours were lost and we only added 1 hour to it. They also talked about the political parties and internal mechanisms. He also went ahead and said security directives that are not legal. And this here he was quoting what General Muhoozi had said, that people should leave the polling areas. The East African community came out with talking about responding to international and regional agreements, also domination of some candidates, and also talked about the internet suspension there. When you look at these reports, the UN report also has come out. It has also talked about repression by government. As the ruling government, when you see all these reports, what do you think about?
First of all, before I answer that, allow me to first of all disagree with my elder brother Andrew Mwenda when he said... grandfather.
Rosemary, you want to bring me down now?
Sorry. I would like to disagree with him when he said President Museveni's votes, he got more votes because many were ticked. I disagree with him because, first of all, as a party, there are 5 issues that help an election to be won. In our view, I want to say the first one was the issue of our candidate. We had a candidate who had a name and many things associated to him. When we look at the peace, the security, and the stability, the progress, the development that we have achieved as a country is associated with him. So he has a name that really any Ugandan would say, when you compare all the candidates that we had, he was the best candidate to support. That's number one. Number two, the message. The message was very important to the people of Uganda. Does it resonate with the people? The people of the country. I want to tell you, brother, that when we had the message of protecting the gains, the people of Uganda appreciated this because, first of all, our message was giving hope to the people. Everybody, anyone, like I have already earlier on said, would want their things to be protected, would want what they have struggled for to be protected. So, having said that, and many other things, our message had a lot in it. But because of time, I want to go to the third element, and that is the issue of the strategy. I want to say that for us as a party, we had an unprecedented village-based mobilization strategy. And this strategy was structure-led. Of course, we employed many more strategies, but this was a main strategy. Because I want to tell you, you can imagine a country with 72,000 villages. And each of these villages, we have about 63 leaders that we were working with to ensure that we get this vote. Just looking at that number alone comes to almost 4.5 million people that were votes that we're starting with. So, as a party, when I talk about the strategy, I want to believe, and I want Ugandans who, especially the mobilizers we are working with, the Nyekundile teams, the leaders, the way we mobilize village by village, house by house to house. I want to believe, and I want my elder, my Jaja Mwenda, to believe that we actually won this straight. Now, another thing we cannot underrate is the issue of resources. We prepared ourselves for 5 years in preparation for that election. We knew what we wanted and we were focused. So when one says we ticked, that's not right, and I don't want to give that kind of perception to our viewers. So
How much did you spend?
Another thing that is not a concern for this discussion.
But a party is a public institution.
What I want to tell you is when we are talking about resources, it's not only financial resources. Resources include human resource. I've already indicated that we had a big team of human resource and other elements. We had committed teams. So all these gave us this win. But more so, there is another element. When you look at the things that President Museveni has done and the NRM government in the past, in the last election, in the last term, the implementation or the successful implementation of our livelihood programs, that also gave the people of Uganda hope and trust in the government that was requesting for another term. And when you look at our manifesto, it clearly shows and gives hope to the people of Uganda. So all those things really gave a win to the party and to NRM. Now, when we talk about the number of people that, the 7 million votes, to be honest, we even anticipated more than that. Our anticipation was almost 13 million votes. I'm sure we would have got 80%, more than 80%. When you look at the votes that were spoiled, almost 90% of those votes were for President Museveni. I want to tell you this election, there is something that really perturbs. When we talk about and cherishing democracy, we cherish democracy, but at the end of the day, we don't appreciate the outcomes of democracy. When somebody wins an election, we'll say it was free and fair and it was democratic. Now, when it turns against someone, then they will say, there was no democracy, or this was wrong, or this was bad. But to be honest, now when you look at, for example, the reports you have talked about now, I want to very quickly go to that. When we talk about the issue of the internet, I think this was in the best interests of Uganda, because you will agree with me, dear viewers, that naturally we find the young people. I was one time a young person. You were young people at one time. There are times when young people are gullible and can be, manipulated with any kind of information. So when we have seen what has happened during this time of elections and campaign time, the messages that have been passed on, telling the young people on social media that we must protest, get your panga, get this, and fight and do this and that. We have been reading and seeing this on social media. And and on the day of voting, we have seen, even after the votes were counted, we have seen in some districts where some of our young people have lost their lives. And of course, the answer has been, they were found with pangas, they were moving with pangas. Is that where we want to see the country going? So for me, the decision that was taken by our security organs to protect this country, and that is the major gain, like I have already said, that the NRM government and President Museveni are there to protect the people of Uganda, to protect the lives of the people and also protect their properties. Okay. So it must not be an election. And Ugandans, we should not forget, or we must remember, that an election is not the end of Uganda. It is not the end of a country, that because you have lost, therefore Uganda comes to an end. We must remember that when you get into an election, there is always a winner and a loser. And of course, our colleagues in the opposition must have known very well that they would have won or they could have lost. But when you look at the opinion polls that have been given in the past before we went for voting, they were all pointing to President Museveni as a victor. Okay. And they were all talking about between 70 to 75%. So what did they expect? And I'm glad it came to pass in that line. So I want to appeal to our people, especially the young people. Uganda is for all of us. What you want or your right should not be a disadvantage or a problem to other people or to other Ugandans.
Thank you.
It is a country that we all want to enjoy. And of course, I want to thank His Excellency the President, the security. I want to thank everybody that participated in ensuring that this election ended well. And of course, I thank Electoral Commission. Much as we had that problem of the voting machines, the voter machines, the verification machines. But at least a decision was taken, it was concluded. The fact that we did not have enough time, based on the time we lost in the morning and the time they added for the completion of the election, we must appreciate that most of the polling stations, people had finished voting.
Thank you.
So,
allow me bring in Apostle Bunjo. You had hinted on it before we left, but I would like you to expound on it. Right now, you lead a church, but also you have a footprint in feeling the temperature on the ground, especially with the young population that we have in this country. Some people are aggrieved by the results. Some others feel that the government has been here too long. Others feel like the government does not care about their needs. There are young people that are looking for work. Regardless of the results, we have one country. How do we pull this together to take this country forward?
I was on the show yesterday. I shared about cross-pollination, where a flower, the bees get honey from the pollen, and then the nectar together to create food. My advice for the young people, the election, to accept the fact that once elections are done, that somebody elected in that power becomes an authority. 2, we are one Uganda. Let's see the bigger picture of Uganda. We are in the time of, because I'm used to Apostle, to President Museveni who won, and all the ones that are going to be chosen. We need to know Uganda in the next 40 years. Let's begin to see ourselves, both young and old, the next Uganda. I am echoing what my colleagues say, that President Museveni has had the chance, Katonda Mwadwa as a president, to be here with all these votes, especially last time when I saw the whole Uganda yellow. Let's use this time as cadres, whatever, the president, to bring, to mend hearts together. People bleeded, others rejoiced, and together tomorrow, we are all one Uganda, which needs to serve each other, forgive each other, be tolerant to each other, because, you know, Uganda is going to stay forever. Uganda is here forever. We need to embrace each one's views. We need to help each other. Like they said, we need now to concentrate on the needs of the people. Now that the elections are done, people should go back to their work. People should now work for the next 5 years. But let me say this, I'd written it down here for the president, that now the president has the power to create the Joshua generation. Because Uganda, as you know, is 75% young people. The elder people are few. My suggestion to the president, now that people have been working with him different ages, this time, let him go to the Generation Z. I liked when he was going around with his daughter. I think it helped a lot. People have eaten enough around him. People have done a lot of things with him. Now, as a judge, he knows his time of departure. Now it's time to think 40 years when he's not here. I speak this 40 years when he's not here. Where does he want to leave Uganda? If that enters his heart, and I know he has it, that's why God has been bringing him back and forth. He's not just coming back always because he needs to be in power. If you read his heart, he wants a Uganda. He wants, I like what Honorable Mbide said, that we have gone back to 1986. This vote, this election took him back, because when you say that it's going to be in 86, in 3031, you can tell whether you want to remember. And even when you get to heaven, you want to see a Uganda which is better, like Abraham did, like Jesus. Before Jesus left, he chose the young people, 12 disciples minus 1, Judas Iscariot. He made sure Judas Iscariot is exposed and doesn't leave him among the team. This time should be as Kisanja eliminating those that have betrayed him, those that have not worked very well, the old guards that have been always messing in corruption, because corruption has been the biggest problem. You have heard about my brother, honorable, cows are given, but sometimes they don't reach to the people because, not because the president did it, he keeps changing guards, not because he likes it, but people have been thieves. So this term, Muzei should be like Jesus when he entered the temple. Jesus pulled out his belt and eliminated every bad workers in the temple. And from that time, the temple stayed well. I believe this term, as we pray for the president, all these challenges our colleagues have shared about can only go when we have a corrupt-free government, and even de-weeding, is that the right word? Getting out those people, whether they are friends, whether they are colleagues, that fought, whatever, but get involved these 75%, the Joshua generation.
Thank you. I'm going to give each of you 2 minutes for parting shots. I'll start with the Honorable Dr. Rosemary Seninde, Honorable Kwalinga, Andrew, Honorable Mbide, and lastly, Apostle Bunjo. Over to you, Doctor.
First of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Almighty God for this moment and for giving Uganda a chance to be where we are and what we are actually talking about Uganda now. But I want to remind the people of Uganda that much as we elected the president and the members of parliament, it is not yet over. I want to appeal to all of you, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, that tomorrow we have to vote for LC5 and our councillors, and on the 27th we have to vote for the mayors of the municipalities, and on the 4th, don't forget to vote for the chairpersons of and the councillors of LC3, because remember, this is where the services are going to be, the services that we all desire to see are going to be passed or going to be implemented. So please come out and vote, and don't just be don't forget that your vote matters. So come out and vote. I want to thank you, Your Excellency the President, and we pray that God is going to hold your hand and give you wisdom to take this country forward. As my colleagues have pointed out, Uganda needs a good future.
Thank you very much. Honorable Kwalinga.
I would like to thank the people of Uganda who have overwhelmingly voted for NRM party, because that is a guarantee that they have really enjoyed the peace the NRM government has ushered into this country. Thank the people of Teso for overwhelmingly voting for NRM, and I also want to thank my people of Kanyumu County for entrusting me with another mandate of 5 years. I can guarantee that I will pursue the interests of Kanyumu other than just my personal interests. I would also like to appeal to the powers that be to really make sure that whatever promises that we have made to the people, it should be fulfilled, because it's what brings about trust. Trust comes when you have been able to fulfill the first promise, the second one, and the third. Then the people of Uganda will always trust you whenever you make any promise. So please, I thank you, and I thank everybody.
Thank you. Andrew, over to you.
Well, I would want to respond to my granddaughter and my grandson here from NRM to say, you see, two things can be true at the same time. It is true that NRM put in a lot of effort to reach out to different segments of our society, to deliver on PDM, to engage different stakeholders. Even on polling day, NRM sent money to villages, every village, to ensure that people are transported to the polling station. They did a lot to win. But it's also true that where they were overwhelmingly strong and the opposition was either absent or thin on the ground, they were able to tick. So even if they had not ticked anyway, NRM would have won. So the ticking was an added advantage. So I can work so hard to achieve so much, also add on something. Yes, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mbide.
Thank you. First of all, I equally congratulate for the first time, my presidential candidate won. in my political life, I voted for a candidate who won.
Was he also with the S6 and above?
So I congratulate him, and I can assure you, the role before us right now is to deliver a qualitative approach to issues going forward. It is no longer important for you to tell me that there is PDM, there is Myoga, and that these are poverty alleviation programs. They can't do much. The World Bank came up and said there must be a multiplicity of programs. 2 of them can't do much, because poverty itself follows a multiplicity of processes through which, of course, it attacks people's pockets. There are those that are historical, there are those that are gender-based, there are those that are academic-based. Whoever has not accessed work simply because they are in school, simply because they are women, simply because they are young, simply because they are old, all of those are segmentations. It must be a multidimensional approach. Several, not two. They must be several, and they can only be field tested. Two, any of those approaches that are not done within the precincts of health, precincts of education, and living standards have nothing to do with poverty alleviation. So we need now a qualitative approach. Government needs to be put on a qualitative standpoint in order for Ugandans to benefit going forward.
Thank you. Lastly, Apostle Bunjo.
Thank you, sir. I want to congratulate the President also upon his victory. My prayer to you and all the colleagues that have won, that if NRM won, we all won. Red, yellow, blue, black, we all won. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be our president. You're going to be our MP. My prayer is that we don't show differences, because our differences is our strengths. When you see all these fingers, they are not equal. But if you fight with one finger, they will break it. But if you put a fist together, you can hit somebody. That's the Uganda want. I've seen this in America when Trump abused Biden, Sleepy Joe and all that. But after the elections, they all came and congratulated him, even though they had differences. I think we should stop this politics of fighting even after elections. Let's work together, build Uganda. We have grandchildren, have 8. I want to see them enjoy the next 40 years. God bless you, we love you, and pray that even those that feel that they were, feel that you were not happy, next time, we have all made attempts and failed. At the end of the day, we had made it at the top. God will always take you there. I pray that this country. Also, I want to congratulate Mama. Mama Janet Museveni has been a very strong pillar in prayer, and his house. Let prayer be the might, the wonderful thing in this government, and even others. Where there's prayer, things can solve. And I believe the next elections tomorrow and the rest, we won't see violence. There will be peace, and then continue with our jobs and our works.
Thank you very much. For today, we'll leave it at that. I want to thank the production team for making today possible. Dr. Seninde and the gentlemen here, thank you so much for coming and gracing us with your presence. We'll end it with this quote. It always seems impossible until it's done. Good morning.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
I'm Dr. Rosemary Nansubuga Seninde, Director for Mobilization, NRM Party. Fellow Ugandans, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the NRM fraternity, we thank you most heartedly for voting wisely for President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and all the NRM flag bearers. I wish to thank all the mobilizers with whom we have mobilized for the party. The success is for all of us. Thank you very much. I would like to remind you, the remaining elections will be as follows. On the 22nd January, we shall be voting for LC5 chairpersons, city mayors and councillors. On the 27th January, municipality mayors and councillors. And on the 4th of January, LC3 chairpersons and councillors. Remember to vote for NRM flag bearers who will be able to work with President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni to protect the gains. May God bless President Yoweri Museveni. May God bless all of us. May God bless Uganda, for God and my country.
Special announcement. The NRM Secretariat wishes to sincerely appreciate all Ugandans for re-electing President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and majority of